Hi, it's Carl Pearson, and I want to explain how we can learn from our enemies. Remember, they got there, and sometimes their techniques possibly may be useful. So this video, number 47, is using a Tammany Hall technique to fight the present Tammany nation. New York City, as the major entry point for European immigrants and largest city to loot, had a Tammany Hall which stole billions of dollars and got away with it. One of the Tammany techniques worked so well that we, as a nation trying to save itself, need to adopt one of the practices to fight what to many has become a corrupt Tammany nation. I've been interested in politics both in college as my major and since graduating from Harvard Law School, and particularly I spent a lot of time studying the progressive era in depth and its system of using so-called editors to tour the rural nation and carry the progressive agenda to the rural parts of the country. This was so successful that William Jennings Bryan came close to winning the election in 1896, which was the peak of the progressive era, which came to an end by 1920 or so. Use of these traveling editors was an important way that progressive politics expanded their impact from urban areas into the rural areas. Politics in cities was quite different, and the corrupt Tammany Hall perfected a technique which kept it, and I might add the mafia during the same period and after, in power. We now need to use that technique, which is described in history as ward healing. Wikipedia states, and I quote, "A ward healer is an American urban political operative who works for a political party in a political ward, the smallest electoral subdivision of a city, soliciting votes and performing campaign tasks on behalf of a political boss, including get-out-the-vote efforts, placing campaign signage, coordination of constituent support, etc." The term originated around the turn of the 20th century, when powerful political machines in major cities run by political bosses, such as the Tammany Hall organization in New York City, used corruption such as graft and patronage to maintain their power. So ward healer has the connotation of a corrupt political operative. In return for his services, the ward healer was often given a sinecure job, such as in the city's civil service, which was controlled by the organization. That's the end of my quote. 1. The ward healer's responsibility was for an area in which he, and apparently he was a male at that time, got to know virtually every resident and voter, and did favors for them, some legal and some not, which encouraged them to vote for the Tammany machine candidates to prevent loss of this favorable treatment. The ward healer sometimes had to do illegal things, such as tear down the signs of opposing political candidates and pay voters to vote, and probably register some graveyard voters as well. You saw examples of alternative ward healing activities in the movie Godfather 1. 2. When eliminating the illegal things and using their time to go door to door and talk about the changes needed and how the voter would be benefited, ward healers can get out a favorable vote to elect a party advocating meaningful reform within a municipality. 3. As to the nation as a whole, however, the new ward healing should be done as the top priority in the swing areas within the swing states, and then other areas looking at the Electoral College and how it produces victories different from the popular vote. And I'm referring to the Bush-Gore and the Trump-Clinton elections particularly. 4. Voters have so many different and conflicting sources of information that it will undoubtedly occur to persons who never heard of Tammany Hall or ward healers that it has become essential to survival of the democracy and Constitution to resort to this one-on-one technique to overcome the evils of divisive media choices. 5. The modern-day ward healer would keep an inventory of the voters living in his or her political area and speak with each of them and keep good records and tickler systems and email notices about the objectives of the party, enroll new voters, ensure that everyone votes, and take care of their problems to such an extent that the voters would believe that voting for the opposition would be a slap in the face to the ward healer and the responsible party providing so much to the voter during the months between elections. 6. Voters need information, and ward healers are able to reach everyone within the ward and deliver roughly the same message to all, which is a unifying factor that we now need in politics. 7. No other medium can reach 100% and is flexible to discuss issues and provide answers to most of the questions. Another unifying aspect. 8. However, the Electoral College favors rural voters over city votes because the smallest states are more rural and have the same number of senators as California or New York. 9. The New York Times reported in November 21, 2016, quote, "In the Senate, the least populous states are now more overrepresented than ever before, and the growing unity of rural Americans as a voting bloc has converted the rural bias in national politics into a potent Republican advantage," unquote. 10. A graph was displayed showing that the minimum percentage of voters required to control the Senate, that is, to elect a majority, went from 34% in the year 1820 down to 17% in 2015. The URL is in the video description. 11. Yes, because of the electoral system which gives states a vote for each senator, a minimum of 17% of the nation's voters can control the Senate and keep a Mitch McConnell as the Senate leader. 12. A substantial part of the new ward healing will have to be spread over a large rural area and will probably require a few rural ward healers to accomplish what one New York City ward healer was able to do in New York City during the 1920s, with a city population density and much lower population numbers. 13. This ward healing medium is now more necessary than ever, especially in the least populated swing states. Well, I've said what I wanted to say, and I'll be back soon with my next video.